Last time we have studied the.
This call is now being recorded.
Do you remember last time what we have learned in short? If you can revise a little, anybody. See, I will tell you. Last time we have studied the male and female gametophyte, the development structure in detail, male reproductive part, female reproductive part of the flower, and then uh, we have studied the development of both male as well as female gametophyte. Now we have to learn the next part where the actual reproduction, how it takes place, and what is the way or the method for the process of reproduction, sexual reproduction in flower, and that is called as pollination. Pollination is what? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the flower. Is my voice audible, children? Is it okay? And can you see the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So pollination will do today. So pollination is nothing but pollen grains are transferred. That is transfer of pollen grains from anther. Where the pollen grains are situated? Obviously in the male reproductive part. What is that male reproductive part? Stamen. And what is the actual fertile part of the or the reproductive part of the stamen? That is anther. Then from where does pollen grains are produced? In the anther. So there is these pollen grains are transferred from anther to the female. Obviously, what is the female part, reproductive part in the flower? That is gynoecium. That means single is carpel or pistil. What it is made up of? Ovary, style and stigma. So the topmost portion, that is called as stigma, which is present, which secretes sugary substances, chemical substances, and on which it's having that capacity, ability to receive the pollen grains. Okay, so the pollen grains are transferred from anther to the stigma of the flower, that is called as pollination. It's the prerequisite for the fertilization, as both male and female gametes are non-motile. So wow, what is the reason behind it? Both male as well as female gametes are not motile, they are non-motile, and so that's why some agency is required, something is required. So how they can be transferred? Now before that, Tilly will see now, that is the types of the pollination. What are the types? These are the types. A, that is autogamy, second is geitonogamy, and the third is xenogamy. So what does it mean? Auto means self. So self-pollination means autogamy. Geiton means neighbor. So in the neighboring flower, when these pollen grains are transferred from anthers to the stigma of the neighboring flower, then that is geitonogamy. But the plant is same here. And xenogamy, it's totally cross-pollination. That means plants are different. Two different plants are there. Okay. So this is what the types. Now, one by one, we will discuss these types. Autogamy, that means self-pollination. What are the important points that we should remember or know when this autogamy or the self-pollination takes place? In case of bisexual flower, it is the pollination by its own pollen grains. So what happens? In the same flower, when the pollen grains of the same flower, that means the anther of the same flower, when they are transferred or fallen on the stigma of the same flower, then that is called as self-pollination. So what are the requirements? That flower should have both the sex organs. So that is the main important thing, that male as well as female reproductive organs should be present in the same flower, right? Then what is one more thing that you need to remember? Without external pollinating agent, how it takes place? Knows any agent is required here. Automatically there, when the pollen grains get mature, they are fallen on the stigma of the same flower automatically. Okay, so there is no need to have any pollinating agent. Then what is one more important thing always you need to remember is offsprings are genetically identical to their parents. Though it is the uh, uh, two different sex organs are involved, but the parents are same. That means the same flower it is used. So that's why there is no change genetically. So offsprings which are produced there genetically identical to that of their parents. So these are the very important characteristic features of autogamy. And the best example is what? Tea plant. Now, what are the adaptations? That means how this plant is adapted. Adaptation means what? Adjusted to the changes in the environment. Maybe anatomically, physiologically, morphologically, there are different ways. So adaptations are seen in the flower. And what are these adaptations seen in the self-pollinated flowers? First is bisexuality, as I told you, that the flower should contain both male as well as female sex organs. That means androecium and gynoecium should be present in the same flower. Then second important thing is what? Homogamy. Homo means similar, gametically. That means both male and female gametes should mature at the same time. That is what called as homogamy. Sometimes what happens, the maturation period of male sex organ is different than the female sex organ. Then it is not possible to have the self pollination, right? So what is the requirement of self pollination? That both male and female gametes should mature at the same time. So that is called as homogamy. Then in case of cleistogamy only, also only self pollination is possible. Cleistogamy means what? Flowers do not open. Flowers do not open. So there are no chances of falling off pollen grains from another flowers outside. So that's why this is the reason, very important, remember this point, that cleistogamy, that means flowers, they remain closed. They do not open. And that's why there are no chances of cross pollination. So obviously, whatever the male and female parts gametes are present, they, when mature at the same time, both are present in the flower, and that's why they, after maturity, get fertilized. That means pollination takes place within them, self pollination takes place. So underground flowers never open. Commelina bengalensis, that is the example. So underground flower, there are no chances of opening. So in that case, only cleistogamy is possible. There are no chances of cross pollination. Now chasmogamy. Now what means it? Flowers open only to expose sex organs. That means stamen and carpel. That means when are they opening? Flowers open when these sex organs, they become mature. Only in that case, only those parts get exposed. Rest of the parts remain as it is. That means, for example, viola, commelina. Commelina show both chasmogamy as well as cleistogamy. That means both the things are observed. But in underground cleistogamy, commelina, only the underground flowers never open. So chances of only self-pollination. So there is difference between cleistogamy and chasmogamy. You just remember, cleistogamy where flowers do not open, never open. Within, so no chance of cross-pollination. Here, only when these carpel and stamen, that means female and male reproductive organ, they only are exposed when they get mature. So there are very little chances of cross pollination, or you can say almost least or no chances, because at the same time they are getting exposed when they are mature at the same time, maturing at the same time. So this is what, these are the adaptations seen in autogamy. So these are some of the plants which are shown. Autogamy, cleistogamy, that means the flowers are totally closed, and viola, Soraria is the example where cleistogamous flower is there. They are not open, they are closed. Whereas viola, same, chasmogamous flower is also there, where flower open. How? When the both male and female reproductive organs only get exposed when they are mature. So these are the examples. Few more same types: cleistogamy and chasmogamy. Cleistogamy in case of beans, peas, peanuts, and some varieties of pea. This self pollination inside the closed flower which do not open. So this is cleistogamy. Flowers are not open. And the another example of chasmogamy is here, that very less chances of cross pollination, or when the flower is mature, only the sex organs, carpel and stamen are exposed. That is what, very less chances of cross pollination in case of chasmogamy. Now, what is the second category, second type? That is geitonogamy. Geiton means neighbor. What happens in that? There is transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of different flower produced on the same plant. Remember this. Very little difference is there between the self and geitonogamy. Autogamy is what? The flower is same, plant is same. Geitonogamy is what? Flower is different but the plant is same. So genetically also, as the parents are same, obviously no such genetic variations are observed, isn't it? But very little. So why only this can be the considered as a type of cross pollination, but as the parent, that way the plant is same. So functionally it is similar to cross pollination. It can be said, and it is to somewhat it is requiring the agents like wind or even insect, because two different flowers are there, right? So transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of different flower produced on the same plant. So remember, geitonogamy, the plant is same, flowers are different. So can be considered a type of cross pollination, but it cannot bring any genetic variation, but is of only economic significance. So cucurbita is the example. Okay, as the plant is same, no such variations are observed. So we can't consider it as a cross pollination exactly. So we have just considered as a different, that is geitonogamy. So these are some of the examples of self pollination, autogamy and geitonogamy. Now here is the example of geitonogamy, where these are the two different flowers. Hibiscus, you can see very well that the with the help of wind or maybe insect, the pollen grains from one flower, they are transferred to the another flower. Here the geitonogamy is possible. Even in case of such flowers like Lantana camera, Asclepias, so here also there are chances, because there are in bunch group these flowers same, height also similar, so chances of crossing over, in the sense the transfer of pollen grains from one flower to the another flower. So these are some of the examples. Now we have to talk about the xenogamy, that means totally cross pollination, where generally self pollination is not seen, but it favors cross pollination only. Now what is that? Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of a flower of a different plant belonging to the same species. So this is what, species is same but the plant is also different and the flower is obviously different. So what is the difference between first two and this one? In autogamy, plant is same, flower is same. In geitonogamy, plant is same but flowers are different. Here the plant is also different, flowers obviously different, but the species should be same. Remember, this is the difference between all these three. Okay, so pollinating agents are required. Obviously, here what is the specific feature of the xenogamy or cross pollination? That there is a requirement of some agent for this transfer of pollen grains. Genetically varied offsprings are produced. Obviously, the plants are different, so their genetic characters are different. When the cross pollination takes place, the offsprings which are produced obviously will be the combination of two different plants. So that's why genetically variations are observed because of two different plants, though of the same species. Okay, so types of pollinating agents now are abiotic and biotic. What are abiotic agents? For example, wind and water, whereas biotic agents are insects, birds, bats, human, and many more. Now we'll talk one by one about all these agents. First, talk about the abiotic agents, which are considered to be non-living. That means examples are wind and water. So wind, this type of pollination which takes place by the agency of wind is called as anemophily. See, most of the time students make mistake with this word. Anemophily means they consider that animals are the pollinating agents. No, animals, that is the wind. So wind pollination is called as anemophily. So when the transfer of pollen grains takes place by the agency of wind, then that type of pollination is called as anemophily, and the plants or the flowers, those plants involved are called as anemophilous plants or flowers. Now, most of the crop plants show this type of pollination. For example, wheat, rice, corn, barley, oat. Most of the monocots, they are crops, and these crops, these monocots, they are the examples of anemophilous type of pollination. Remember. Now, what are the adaptations? That means spatial features which favors this type of pollination that we will discuss. Number one, flower. So what the flowers, what adaptations they show? They are very small in size. They are inconspicuous. They are colorless, without nectar or fragrance. Now see, wind doesn't need any color for attraction or nectar or fragrance, isn't it? So these type of flowers which show wind pollination, they are very small, inconspicuous, and they are colorless, and they are also without nectar and fragrance. Now, what type of pollen grains are there? They are generally dry, lightweight, and produced in large number. You know why? Because they are carried by wind, so obviously they should be lightweight and they should be dry. If they are not dry, they won't be carried away. So that's why they should be lightweight and they are dry and should be produced in large number. Why? Because wind doesn't know where to how to blow any in any direction it blows. So that's why this is very important, that there are chances of loss of pollen grains in much more quantity. So that's why the pollen grains produced are large in number. In case of flowers or the plants which produce which pollinate by the agency of wind. So these are the adaptations which also you always remember, because the questions are generally asked on the adaptations seen in so and so type of flower. Now, stigma. Stigma is feathery. Feathery to trap pollen grains carried by wind. Why it is feathery? Why it is feather like? The area or the surface area of the stigma is like a feather, right? It's wide. Why? To catch the trap the pollen grains carried by wind. So that's why, as these wind pollinated pollen grains are very dry, lightweight, and so that's why if it is feathery, so as per the direction of wind, it also will blow, show the movement, and obviously will catch trap the pollen grains carried by wind. So that's why stigma is feathery. Then stamens. Stamens are long. That means filaments are long and anthers are versatile. So to catch these or to trap these or to move these pollen grains from one place to the another place for the transfer of pollen grains with the help of agent of the wind, it is very important to have the filament of the stamen long. So that's why easily it will be, the pollen grains will be carried away. And anthers are versatile means what? Versatile nature means what? The filament is attached to the anther only at a point, at a particular point, and rest of the part is kept free so that it can move. That means as per the direction of the wind, it can move very easily. So as per the direction of the wind, it can blow air. As the air or the wind blows, the anthers, the versatile anthers being in nature, these pollen grains are very easily carried away when they get mature, when they are mature. So stamens and stigma are exposed to air currents. So it becomes easier for the plant, with the help of these currents, air currents or the wind currents, can be easily transferred. Pollen grains can be easily transferred, taken away. So these are the adaptations seen in case of wind pollinated flowers. It's very important. Remember, listen. Now the second type is pollination by wind. So this is called as hydrophily. Hydro means water. So the pollinating agent is when water, then that type is called as hydrophily. It's found only in some 30 genera of aquatic monocots. Vallisneria, Zostera, Ceratophyllum. These are some Ceratophyllum. This is called as actually. These are some of the examples of hydrophily. Now, what are the adaptations in hydrophilous flower? Flowers are small, inconspicuous. Perianth and other floral parts are unwettable. You know the meaning of perianth? When the if you know the parts of the flower, then you will be knowing. See, when what are the non-essential parts of the flower? Calyx and corolla. That means sepals and petals. These floral parts, when sometimes they are fused to each other, they are not separated from each other, then that part is considered. So these parts, floral parts, are unwettable. Why unwettable? If they are remaining in water, they are growing in water for as they are hydrophilous flower, obviously they are growing on water, in water, so it should be unwettable. Or what will happen? Desiccation. So to avoid it, these parts are unwettable. Pollen grains are long and unwettable due to presence of mucilage. Mucilage is present, which is the sticky substance, sticky oily substance, which avoids the desiccation of the pollen grains from surrounding water where they are growing, right? So the pollen grains are long and unwettable. The nectar and fragrance also lacking, because these flowers, this water, pollinating agent as when water, then it doesn't require any nectar or fragrance. So that is also lacking. So these are the adaptations seen in hydrophilous flowers or the plant. Now there are two types of hydrophily. One is hypohydrophily and the second is epihydrophily. Hypo means below and epi means above. So very simple to remember. When the pollination is taking place below the water surface, then it is called as hypohydrophily. And when pollination by the agency of water is taking place on or above the surface of water, then it is called as epihydrophily. Very simple to remember. Hypo is below, epi is above. So when the pollination is taking place below the water surface, then it is hypohydrophily. And here the pollen grains are heavier than water, and that's why only it is possible for the pollen grains to sink down. If pollen grains are lightweight, then they will float on the water. So in hypohydrophily, the pollen grains should be heavy than the water. So they are heavy than water and so sink down and they are caught up by stigmas of the female flowers. And this type of pollination, hypohydrophily, is observed in Zostera. So Zostera is the example. So pollen grains are long, ribbon-like, without exine, and they are heavy than water. Now in epihydrophily, very simple. The pollen grains are lightweight. So that's why only it is possible for the pollen grains to float on the water surface. And but in that case, what happens? In case of hypo, pollen grains reach the female flower which are growing below the water surface. Here what happens? As these pollen grains in epihydrophily, they are lightweight, they are floating on the water surface. Stigma of the female flower which is growing below the water surface, that after maturity comes on the water surface to receive the pollen grains for some time. That means not permanently but temporarily it comes above the water surface to receive the pollen grains which are flowing on the water surface. So epihydrophily, this here example is Vallisneria, which is the submerged dioecious. Now you try to understand. Submerged means below the water surface this plant is growing. Dioecious means what? Di means two. The male and female plants are different. These terminologies you always remember. Dioecious nature is in case of plants, and monoecious and dioecious, these are the words. Okay, this nature is observed in case of plants. Now in case of this Vallisneria, the pollen grains are floating on the water surface, but the female part of the flower, that is, as the flower, this plant is submerged, though it is dioecious in nature, the availability of the pollen grains for cross pollination is on the surface of water. So that's why temporarily these long elongated, or the style of this female flower or this female part of the Vallisneria, though it is long, it is coiled, and when the it becomes mature, stigma becomes mature, that it gets uncoiled and reaches the water surface to receive the pollen grains which are floating on the water surface. So the submerged dioecious freshwater aquatic plant in which female flowers reach the water surface temporarily to ensure pollination, and male flowers float on the surface of water. Okay. Though the plant is dioecious, It is the female part, it temporarily reaches the water surface to receive the pollen grains, and the style is very long. It is coiled in case of this plant, means male and female both the parts are present, but for cross pollination it comes above the surface of water surface for receiving the pollen grains. So specific gravity of the pollen grain is equal to that of the water in case of epihydrophily, and that is why they float on the surface of water. Some aquatic plants are anemophilous also. Okay, by wind currents, whatever the pollen grains are fallen on the water currents, they are received by the plants. So Pentamegaton or Halogaries, these are some of the examples. That means what? Though these plants are aquatic, here in case of aquatic plants, there are chances of anemophily also. How? As wind is blowing, carrying the pollen grains, and when the pollen grains fall on the surface of water, then such type of aquatic plants in like that Vallisneria, so there are some other plants, aquatic plants, where the stigma reaches the water surface to receive the pollen grains carried by wind. So that type of pollination can be considered as the anemophilous. And some aquatic plants are entomophilous also. How the entomophilous? For example, lotus, water hyacinth, water lily, these are some of the aquatic plants. Though they are growing in water, these are pollinated by insects. So that means what? The flower is growing above the surface, so it is easier for the female part, stigma, to receive the pollen grains carried by insects. So there are so many insects which are favoring this type of pollination of aquatic plants like lotus, water hyacinth, and water lily. Now, the second category of agents is biotic agents. Almost 80% of the plants, they show such type of living agents are required, which show the pollination by these biotic agents like birds, insects, bats, snails, etc. Now, one by one, we will see the types as well as the adaptations seen in these plants. Pollination by insects is called as entomophily. Entomos is insect. So entomophily means when the pollinating agent is insect. For example, rose, jasmine, these are some of the examples, common examples which where entomophily is favored. Now, what are the adaptations? Obviously, flowers are large, showy, often brightly colored. Why? To attract these insects. These flowers are large so that they can bear the weight of the insect. They are showy, attractive, brightly colored to attract the insects for the pollination. So, these are the very important adaptations seen in entomophilous flower. The flowers produce sweet odor also for the same odor to attract the insect, as well as nectar. So to get the nectar, also insects get attracted towards the flower. Stigma is rough due to presence of hair or is sticky due to mucilaginous secretion. So either the stigma is rough or sticky. As it sticky is because of the presence of mucilaginous secretion. That means it secretes sugary substances. So that is also very important to, once the pollen grain is fallen, it will not be carried away again. So that's why. And the stigma is rough. Again, this hairy stigma helps to receive the pollen grains. So that is also helpful. Then pollen grains are spiny and surrounded by yellow sticky substance called as pollen kit. So pollen grains are always spiny, which helps them to get adhere to the stigma, to get attached to the stigma. So this nature of the pollen grain, which is when it is spiny, it helps. So and also surrounded by the sticky substance, that is pollen kit, so that it will get stuck or it will get attached and will remain on the stigma when it comes in contact with the stigma. So that is why the pollen grains nature is very favorable for the cross pollination, that is entomophily. Some plants have special adaptations for the insect visitor to help in cross pollination. And for example, that is saliva. salvia. That salvia is the best example, that is that shows the lever mechanism. That is very special mechanism. I will show you in the diagram also. See, this is the plant. How this pollination takes place, I will explain. This is the bilabiate flower of salvia. Okay, see, this bilabiate means these two lobes, that means petals are divided into two lobes. Okay, and how they are in such a way that the insect very easily can come and reach to get the nectar from the base of this flower where the nectary glands are present. Then one more adaptation of this flower, not only the structure, but these, you can see the stamens which are fertile are present on to the upper lip of this flower, and the sterile stamens are on the lower lobe of the flower. So what happens when the stamens here are the stamens of the upper lobe, they are fertile, they fall, these pollen grains fall on the body of the insect, and when this insect, same insect, then goes and enters the another flower. Again, one more thing you can observe here, that this is the stigma, long elongated stigma that receive the pollen grains from the body of the insect. So in this way, this is called lever mechanism. Why lever mechanism? How the key fits into the lock, the same way, this is the arrangement or adaptation seen in this flower to favor the insect pollination. So bilabiate nature, fertile styles, or that means stamens on the upper lobe of this, whereas sterile on the lower lip lobe of this flower, as well as long elongated gynoecium, that means carpel with the stigma here, which is also towards the upper lobe, and that's why this favors the insect pollination. So this is very important example, special type of adaptations, that is entomophily, that is called as lever mechanism. Now, second type of biotic pollination is, by pollinating agent is when bird, that is called as ornithophily. When pollinating agents are birds, that type of pollination is called as ornithophily. Only few types of birds are specialized for this type of pollination. They usually have small size and long beak. Means, for example, sunbirds and hummingbirds, you must have observed so many times some hummingbirds. Their beak is very long and they're very small, and they can fly in air continuously for a long time, as long as they can receive the nectar from the flower of this type of plants. So bird size is very small and they have long beaks, so that is the adaptation seen in these birds. But flowers, what are the adaptations seen in the plants? They are large enough, their petals are large enough. These ornithophilous plants examples are Bombax, Callistemonon, that is the bottle brush, and Butea monosperma. So flowers are usually brightly colored, large and showy. So to attract these birds, the flowers are brightly colored and also large. Why large? Because they need to bear the weight of these birds, and they are showy. So to attract, they are showy, brightly colored and large enough. They secrete profuse dilute nectar, and so to get the nectar, these flowers are full of nectar to attract the birds. So that's why they produce large amount of nectar. And the pollen grains are sticky and spiny. So how the pollen grains in these flowers, they are sticky and spiny, so that they can stick, they are easily stuck, they stick to the body of the bird. And when the bird reaches the another flower, and they not only to the body but especially to the beak. So when the beak reaches the base of the nectary gland, by the time the pollen grains are uh, fallen on the body, as well as they are getting stuck to the, they are fallen on the body, as well as the beak also gets surrounded, or on the beak also they get stick to the beak of the birds, and easily when the same bird uh, reaches or it visits the another flower, there automatically these pollen grains are received by the another flower, and so in this way the it favors the cross pollination by the agency of birds. So flowers are generally without fragrance, as birds do not have any sense, means very poor sense of smell. So they are not showing any fragrance, but they are producing large amount of nectar. They are showy, brightly colored. See, this is a very common example. And see the structure of the flower also. It's tubular, so that very easily at the base of this flower, the where the nectary glands are, they are secreting the nectar, this juice. Therefore, getting that juice, this beak of the bird is also long, and while receiving the nectar, the pollen grains as well as the stigma, whatever the parts of the flower, here the pollen grains they stick to the body of the beak as well as some other part of the body of the bird. And when the same bird reaches another flower, these pollen grains are received by the another flower. So in this way, the it favors the ornithophily. Now the next is pollination by bats. Pollination by bats is called as chiropterophily. So chiropterophily, that is the bat pollination. Now very special adaptations are seen. It's not like bird, but little difference and very special features are seen in this type. Bats can transport pollen grains over long distances and sometimes several kilometers. How the flowers are made, they are dull colored but with strong fragrance, because you know that bats when they are working and which part of the body they are utilizing, so as their vision is very poor or not developed, they do not, these flowers are very dull colored, no need to attract these, as the vision of these bats is very poor, or you can say very negligible, very less, they can't use, it's not working or functioning, not functional. So but they are using which sense, they are having very strong sense of smell, so these flowers produce strong fragrance as well as they secrete abundant nectar. The nectar produced by these flowers is also in a large quantity. So to get this nectar by this strong smell produced by the flowers, these bats they reach the flower and get the nectar. So the flowers produce large amount of edible pollen grains. The pollen grains produced are edible, means they can be eaten. So Kadamba flower tree, that is Anthocephalus, then Adansonia baobab tree, that is called as Kigela sausage tree. These are some of the examples which are pollinated by the agency of bats, where the flowers are large, dull colored. So these are some of the, in this diagram you can see these all biotic agents along with the pictures. Entomophily means insect pollination. Then this ornithophily means bird pollination, chiropterophily means the bat pollination, and anthropophily, that means human. Now, how the humans are responsible, that we'll discuss later. This is what included in the syllabus I'm going to talk about. Now, outbreeding devices and all that will take little time. So before that, I just would like to show you uh, the same thing but with another few more slides, so that it will, you will remember it again with a very good examples and the pictures. Okay, so the pollination, as you know, that is the transfer of pollen grains, that by the agency
Agency
or
or
without
without
agency.
agent.
Then pollination is the mechanism to achieve the objective, that is the transfer of pollen grains to the stigma of the pistil from the anther. So these are some of few more examples and the pictures, so that it will be your revision also. And if we get time, then I will talk about the next part in few minutes. So these are examples of chasmogamy. That means the only, you can see here the male and female parts are exposed. So these are Viola, Commelina produced two types of flowers, that means chasmogamous flower and The another is clistogamous flowers. Clistogamous flower generally they are underground. They never open. So within the same flower, the pollination takes place. There are no pollinating agents required. So autogamy, this is just revision I'm taking. Pollen grains are transferred from anthers to the stigma of the same flower. So self-pollination. Echinogamy, this is the best example, as I said, so many crop plants like rice, barley, jowar, maize, wheat. See, these are the all crop plants, monocots. Most of these are the examples of monocots. So they are where the transfer of pollen grains is from one flower to the another flower, but the plant is same. That is the heteronogamy. Now xenogamy, totally two different plants, so obviously two different flowers, but the species should be same. Then agents of cross pollination, when biotic agents, either animals, birds, humans, bats, snakes, these are biotic agents, whereas maximum are abiotic and only wind and water are abiotic agents. So you can learn this with the help of this diagram. Pollinating agents abiotic, wind and water; biotic as bird, insect, bat, etc. Now biotic, in under abiotic, ademophily means by the agency of wind, where the feathery stigma, numerous flowers, and generally they are present in influences, right? So this is what hydrophily, two types, hypo and epihydrophily. Majority of the aquatic plants are such as water hyacinth, water lily, they are growing above the level of water, so above the surface of water, and so can be pollinated by insect or wind, as I told you. So though they are aquatic plants, not necessary that their hypohydrophilia or epihydrophily or the water currents are responsible for their pollination. No, either it can be, they can be pollinated by wind or even by insects. So these are the examples. Now epihydrophily, their pollination is, the pollinating agent is water itself, but it takes place above the surface as epihydrophily. Vallisneria, where the female flowers reach the surface of water by a long stalk and male flowers are released on the surface of water. So many flowers are carried passively by water currents, and some of them eventually reach the female flowers and the stigma, that is epi. So this is the best example you can see in this picture. The male flowers, they are floating. These are the stamens on the surface, whereas carpels or the female flower, they are submerged, but for receiving the stamens, they come uncoiled each, they are coiled around each other. This is a style that is very long, coiled, but to reach it uncoils and reach the surface to receive the pollen grain. So this is what very easily you can get from this epihydrophily in Vallisneria. Now hypohydrophily, best example is Zostera, because here pollination takes place below the water surface, and so the female flower remains submerged in water, and the pollen grains being heavy, they reach below the water surface, they sink down, so that easily the flower can receive, female part, that means the stigma can receive these pollen grains. So this is the submerged hypohydrophily in Zostera, below the water surface. Now the next type is pollination by zoophily, that is now entomophily, insect, then ornithophily means bird. See the structures also. Then chiropterophily means by bats. Then malacophily means by the snails. So malacophily means pollination is taking place by snails. And these are again some of there is examples of biotic agents, that is therophily, that means squirrels. Then Ophiophily, that means snakes are responsible. So these are some of the examples. Now we had last 10 minutes just Let me know whether we can continue for these devices, or you can say, as I was outbreeding devices, or because we have already revised the part. So if you say we will continue for these outbreeding devices, shall I continue? One of you can unmute and tell, because 10 more minutes are there. If you want, I will continue. Otherwise, I will stop. Okay, we'll have discussion. No issue.